Should you buy your first property by leveraging the government's first home buyer incentives, or just go ahead and buy your first property as an investment? I get asked this all the time, so I'm going to break down in this video what factors to consider when making this choice. So the answer really comes down to objectives. If your objective is just to buy your first home and live in it and pay off over 30 years because you're sick of renting, then that's absolutely fine. This video is not relevant. You can turn it off and go ahead and just buy that first home using the 5% deposit scheme, because I think it's a really good way just to get into the market with minimal deposit. But if you're a person who wants to accelerate your path to financial freedom by investing in multiple properties over a long period of time so that your property portfolio can fund your lifestyle and retirement, then let me explain why the first home buyer incentives, that path may not be the best option, because you're missing out on lots and lots of other considerations. I see far too many financial planners, accountants giving advice to clients but only focusing on saving tax. And the main kind of explanation, I would say, to going for the first home buyer scheme is, one, yeah, you pay a bit less stamp duty, yeah, you can get into the market 5% deposit, yeah, you get the first home, I think the principal place of residence, CGT or capital gains tax exemption. But saving tax is not the only way to get rich, because the rich knows that paying tax means you're making more money. And so I'll be going through examples in this video as to what considerations you need to encounter before going for the first home or the investment route. So here are the numbers for buying an $800,000 property in Sydney, because that's the max you can go for the first home deposit scheme. So the loan amount is $760,000. Interest rate at principal and interest at 6%, that's the assumption. If you're in Sydney, it's probably a 2-bedroom apartment. That's probably all you're going to afford for $800,000. So the growth rate that I assume here is 5%. And I took this from this graph here. You can see it's from Longview. This is for the Melbourne property prices performance over the last 25 years. And this is relevant for Sydney as well. This data is pretty similar. Period apartments, you can see it's 4% per annum. Brand new builds 1%. But I gave the 4% a bump to 5%. So this is the first year holding cost, because most financial planners and accountants, when they go and advise clients to go buy this home to live in, most of the time when I speak to people, they're like, yo Matt, I'm going to live in it for 12 months and then move out so I can claim the main residence exemption. Great. So let's look at the first year of holding costs just to live in it. $45,000 a year, you can see in yellow, of principal and interest payments, and also about $15,000 a year just to hold on to property from expenses such as council rates, strata, and repairs and maintenance, if any. So that's about $60,000 a year just in the first year to hold on to this property. So this next one is when you actually, after 12 months and we actually moved out and you claim this as an investment property. You can see the interest rate now is 6.5% because the rates are higher on investment loans than owner occupier loans. You can see the cash outlay down the bottom in yellow. This is after all negative gearing, benefits that's been claimed from the taxpayer. Is about $27,000 a year in the first year after you've moved out and put a tenant in there. And the rent, by the way, is assumed is $650 a week. And so you can see on average down the bottom, the yellow line, for up to the 5-10 years, the average loss, cash flow loss, is about $25,000 a year. So here are the end results if you choose to buy a first home property first, and then you move out and put a tenant in there just to claim the main residence. So let's assume that you sell it after 10 years. The negative cash flow that you've copped over 10 years, and it's after all the negative gearing benefits, is $290,000. So we're going to subtract that from the $650,000 of equity of the profit that you made. So at the end of the day, the net profit after selling it, and we're ignoring selling costs here, is $360,000. So if I've been going, well, not so bad, Matthew. One property, $360,000. But let me show you what the other side looks like if you chose to buy an investment property instead. And that is 2 investment properties, because remember, the loan amount for the first sample is $760,000. It's quite good, and that's eaten up a lot of serviceability. But for the person who's a little bit smarter and they only buy a $500,000 investment property interstate, let's say in Perth or Brisbane, and they only get up to $400,000 loans, so that's an 80% kind of loan to value ratio. You can buy 2 of those, because 2 $400,000 loans is $800,000, and plus you get the rental income that's added to your serviceability, and also negative gearing benefits. You can actually borrow a lot more than buying your first home to live in. So in the next examples, there'll be 2 investment properties, and typically a client, from my experience, can buy 3 over 5-10 years, not just 2. But I just want to make it a bit more fairer comparison, make the numbers a bit closer, just so that we can see what could be a better option. So here are the numbers for the investment property number 1. $500,000 purchase price, loan amount $400,000. The capital growth rate is 7%, which is basically average for house. By the way, this is a freestanding house for $500,000. So the growth rate is 7% as per, again, this graph comes up. Long view, 7% is an average for freestanding houses on average. And by the way, this is conservative because for if you buy in the growth areas, usually the growth rate is between 10 to 20%, give or take, for the first 1 to 3 years if you buy correctly. But let's assume 7% just to give it a bit more conservative. Rental income is $550 per week, so it's yielding just under 6%. So this is the cash flow analysis over the 5-10 year period. You can see after negative gearing benefits, it's only costing this person about $2,500 in the first year, and then it becomes positive cash flow. Look down the bottom column there to at year 5, it's paying itself off. And you can see in 10 years time, it's worth just under $1 million with $583,000 of equity. So that's the performance of the first property. And now let's extrapolate this and go, look, let's say this person buys an investment property number 2 at year 3. So we extrapolate the growth rate over 7 years. I've done the numbers already. And here are the final results. So we're going to assume neutrally cash flow for the 10 years. But you can see in the previous example, it's year 5 when it becomes positive cash flow. So we're going to ignore that and just give the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that's neutrally cash flow. Profit after selling investment property number 1 is $580,000. You can see investment property number 2, usually this person can buy 2 properties in the first year. But let's say, look, let's pull it back a bit. Let's be a bit more conservative here. Let's say they only made $420, okay, for this example, for the second investment property, provided they pick the right and everything. And so all up, it's about $1 million of equity for the 2 properties in 10 years. And of course, as investment properties, we don't have the main resident exemption. We're going to pay capital gains tax, which is 22.5%, assuming this person is at the highest marginal tax rate of 45%. So you're paying $225,000 of capital gains tax. Net profit after 10 years is $775,000. As you can see here, the person who invested in 2 investment properties versus just buying 1 property, they win by more than double the net worth. So you can see here is there's much more than just looking at the tax rules and go, oh, you should buy your first home, live in it, move out because you get to save tax. There is much more than just saving tax. Property is a game of finance. You can see here serviceability was an important consideration. Also holding power. This person didn't lose much money or any money at all going for the investment route versus losing almost $300,000 over 10 years. So that took away from the growth. A lot of people just think about the capital growth and the tax-free element attached to the capital growth. But what about the holding costs in Sydney? It's much more higher and much more painful than investing interstate in Perth and in Townsville and other areas of regional Australia. And also they grow at usually a better rate if they're houses versus an apartment in Sydney. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and comment what your best takeaway. And if you are a person who's thinking in 2024, or I'm thinking of buying an investment property or a home, I'm not too sure, Matt, what's the best wealth? I'm actually giving away 3 property wealth plans. What that is I sit down with that person, it's free of charge, no obligations. I break down their circumstances and I give you my 2 cents as to what factors to consider when choosing which path is the right path for you. Again, in this video, there's nothing wrong with going for the first home route if you want to live in a home. And there's nothing wrong with going the investment property route if you want to build wealth. Nothing wrong with that. It's just what comes down to strategies, comes down to the objective of the person. And that's what I do in that free property wealth game plan, where I do break it down and give you some insights so you get more clarity in 2024. Feel free to book in a call. Again, only 3 spots in January for 2024. And I'll see you in the next video soon. Thanks for watching.